Hey, everybody. I want to talk about yellow journalism. It was a phrase coined by Irvin Wardman in 1897 as he was trying to critique this new journalism that was coming on the scene that was much more sensationalized and really appealing to base instincts of people. And he he was concerned that that it had not even the veneer of decency. And the Pulitzer's New York World was running a comic strip called The Yellow Kid, and eventually Wardman called it Yellow Kid journalism, and they dropped the kid, and yellow journalism stuck. But it's a style that was characterized by really aggressive or assertive illustrations, including typography with big bold headlines that spread across the front page, heavy use of illustrations, including photographs. They played with layouts. One example I'm thinking of is when the USS Maine exploded, and there's a giant picture on the front of it. That was new. That was different. The papers also had a penchant for self promotion, and again, I'm thinking of William Randolph Hearst and the Journal when he sent reporters over to break out a Cuban political prisoner. Um, Evangelina Cosio Cisneros, and she's being jailed in Havana, and it's this very unlawful but very um, outrageous thing for the American press to do. And here's her sending reporters down. They break her out and they bring her home or bring her into America. And there's a huge reception for her. It's all over the front page, and it's like, look what the New York Journal has done. And but something important really comes out of this too, because um, the journal begins to use it as a description for the inhumane treatment that's happening in Cuba. Spain won't give Cuba its independence, and Cuba's afraid that Spain is going to use the people in the outlying areas to fight against them. So they start rounding up everyone into the city centers, and it becomes deplorable living conditions. Well, the World and the Journal are both covering this, and their critics are saying that it's this sensationalized uh, talk about the war that really brought it on. Um, they both papers sort of advocated for better conditions for Cuba to do something about this, but neither of them really said, let's have a war. There's a famous story with Pulitzer and the people that he sent over to Cuba, um, that basically they get there, and it's Remington. And Remington is the famous illustrator from the Civil War, and he doesn't want to be there anymore. And he's like, hey, all is quiet. I'm coming home. And Pulitzer supposedly says, please remain. You furnish the pictures, and I'll furnish the war. More than likely, the book says that this never happened, but the critics said it's this overheated coverage of the Cuban insurrection that forced the United States into war with Spain. And so a couple days after one of these big battles that happened, the journal, in a big bold headline, says, how do you like our war? And it's part of this, that's one of the characteristics of yellow journalism, is to sort of pat themselves on the back, to promote themselves. But the statement about how do you like our war is probably more poking fun at the critics who said it was the sensationalism that drove America into that war. But studies on the history of that time show that the papers really didn't talk about it as much as the critics thought they did. One thing that's really important about yellow journalism is the activist ethos, and we can see that with Hearst breaking out um, the political prisoner in Cuba. We can also see it with Pulitzer in his um, exposing corruption and all of that. And then we see other papers doing this with the swill milk thing. And then there's bringing down the Tweed Ring, and then in New York's Tammany Hall, there's all this corruption that's being exposed. Pulitzer wasn't afraid to go after a singer that he thought was drunk during her performance. He wanted something that was nonpartisan, in that even though he was fully backing the Democratic Party. But some of these hallmarks of yellow journalism we can still see today. The book gives examples of tabloids, and I saw a couple examples online that were talking about the Ebola crisis and how there was a lot of sensational coverage with that. I think of most recently the coronavirus coverage as well. But I don't know if anyone else is covering it or watching it, but part of something that I'm watching is the Ukrainians and how they're using social media right now to, the Washington Post says, to bruise, belittle, and humiliate the Russians. But part of what they're trying to do in this campaign is to really expose Russia's propaganda, and Russia's telling mothers that have sent their sons that, we're winning the war, everything's fine, this is all good. And the Ukrainians, they're asking for people with a background in IT, in graphic design, to all kind of come together in this sort of IT army, and not only help keep the morale of the people up, but also to showcase what's really happening in the Ukraine, and trying to get the Russian people to understand what's happening, and to cause them to rise up against and to call for an end to the war with their government. So I thought that was a very interesting correlation with yellow journalism and how it's being used today, with civil citizen journalists. So yeah, that's yellow journalism is probably one of my favorite time periods, and it's kind of interesting to see what's happening in the Ukraine with it today. So that's all I've got. So, all right, thank you.